This morning, because it is Poetry Sunday, Peg Beeson has Poems for a Rainy Day, hoping to read to children, and it will be for children of all ages this morning. Peg, please welcome. I don't think so. Would you like to be
Yeah, I'll
here?
just do it from here.
All right, let me move things out of your way.
Well, I had planned some poems for a rainy day, and we certainly have had a lot of rain lately. And if you have little children at home that you have to deal with, oh my gosh, it's hard to keep those little people busy and entertained on a rainy day. So that was my plan, but we don't have any children here this morning, so I'm just going to share a few things with you. Jack Perlutsky is a wonderful author for little kids, for poetry. And I went to a conference that he was at years and years ago, and I bought a book called Rainy, Rainy Saturday, and he signed it for me, so it's one of my favorite things to keep. And he signed it, "Oh, Drips." And the first one is, "It's Saturday and what a pain. No school today, but lots of rain. And mother tells me when it pours, the weather's bad, so stay indoors. I'd rather go out in the yard, but no, it's raining much too hard. So I will stay inside and play this rainy, rainy Saturday." So simple, so perfect. And of course, if you've got a wiggly kid who can't go outside to play, then they've got to do something else inside, like maybe do somersaults. "It's fun turning somersaults and bouncing on the bed. I walk on my hands and I stand on my head. I swing like a monkey and I tumble and I shake. I stretch and I bend, but I never, never break. I wiggle like a worm and I wriggle like an eel. I hop like a rabbit and I flop like a seal. I leap like a frog and I jump like a flea. There must be some rubber inside of me." And of course, you have to think of something to do when you're really, really bored, so maybe you try to whistle. "Oh, I can laugh and I can sing and I can scream and shout, but when I try to whistle, the whistle won't come out. I shape my lips the proper way, I make them small and round, but when I blow, just air comes out. There is no whistling sound. But I'll keep trying very hard to whistle loud and clear, and someday soon I'll whistle tunes for everyone to hear." I really can sympathize with that poem because I never did learn to whistle. And I had this experience just recently on a rainy day. I was just sitting quietly in the house, and the only thing I could hear was, there aren't many clocks that tick anymore, but I have one. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Something's hiding in the clock, a thing that makes a ticking sound and helps the hands go round and round, a thing that can't be very tall to fit inside a place that's small. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Something's hiding in the clock. I've always loved that one, and when I did it with kids, I would have the whole class do the in the background while I read the poem. So that was fun. And there's so many good ones in this book. I'm not going to read them all to you. One of the ones that I liked, let's do this one. "Oh, it poured and it rained and it rained and it poured. I moped around the house feeling lonely and bored, till Father came over and gave me a nudge and said with a smile, 'Hey, let's make chocolate fudge.' Then he gave me a bowl that we filled to the brim. It was fun making fudge in the kitchen with him. I stirred and I stirred, but I wasn't too neat. I got fudge on my hands, I got fudge on my feet. I got fudge on my shirt, I got fudge in my hair, I got fudge on the table, I got fudge on the chair. I got fudge in my nose and fudge in my ears. I was covered all over with chocolate smears." When the cooking was done, Father wiped off my face and he frowned as he said, what a mess in this place. He was not really mad and did not hold a grudge. And we both ate a mountain of chocolate fudge. Oh, I like chocolate fudge even when it's not a rainy day. But then he has one poem in here that's really quite interesting, I think, for kids. Sometimes I simply have to cry. I don't know why. There's really nothing very wrong. I probably should sing a song, or run around and make some noise, or sit and tinker with my toys, or pop a couple of balloons, or play a game, or watch cartoons. But I'm feeling sad, though I don't know why. And all I want to do is cry. On a rainy day, you can feel like that. But at the end of the day, I was wide awake at bedtime. Not a yawn was in my head, so I pleaded with my parents not to make me go to bed. I grumbled and I whimpered, but I knew I couldn't win. So I put on my pajamas and my parents tucked me in. Now, underneath my covers, I'm a deep-sea submarine, searching in the darkness for a magic jelly bean. I'll find it and I'll bite it and I'll wish for all my might for rainy, rainy Saturday to disappear tonight. I'll wish for sun tomorrow, for the clouds to float away, so that this Sunday won't be rainy like this rainy Saturday. Those are just a few poems for a rainy day. I was planning also to read for the kids some tongue twisters, because if you're stuck inside on a rainy day, you can try to whistle, do some exercise with your mouth that way. But another way to do exercise is to try to do some tongue twisters. And Dr. Seuss, of course, who always writes in rhyme, has a book of tongue twisters. Just a few of these, because they wear me out. Do you like fresh fish? It's just fine at Finney's Diner. Finney also has some fresher fish that's fresher and much finer, but his best fish is his freshest fish. And Finney says with pride, the finest fish at Finney's is my freshest fish, French fried. So don't order the fresh or the fresher fish at Finney's. If you're wise, you'll say, fetch me the finest French fried freshest fish that Finney fries. Oh, I'm going to skip that one. That's too hard. And I'm going to skip that one too. Let's see if I can do this. We have two ducks, one blue, one black. And when our blue duck goes quack, quack, the black duck quickly quack, quacks back. The quacks, blue quacks, make her quite a quacker, but black is a quicker quacker backer. Oh, I used to do this for a living, can you tell? And let's see if there's just a couple more I'll add here. This is also from a book that was just a collection of different poets, but it's for the very young. And you don't see that very often. If you get a book of children's poetry, a lot of them are really for older kids, but these are really young ones, and I like those simple ones best. And here's how to play hide and seek when you're all by yourself. When I am alone and quite alone, I play a game, and it's all my own. I hide myself behind myself, and then I try to find myself. I hide in the closet where no one can see. Then I start looking around for me. I hide myself and look at myself. There was once a shadow I took for myself. I hide in a corner, I hide in the bed, and when I come near me, I pull in my head. And you know how many kids love to, and you probably did it when you were a kid, especially if your mother had the kind of floor in the kitchen with a different color of tiles that were interspersed. You pretended games. When we're hunting, we explore squares upon the kitchen floor. We must get from here to there without touching anywhere, for this square is safe for us. But that one is dangerous. Oh, just a hit and miss group of poems for a rainy day.
Thank you, Peg. Do we have children to sing out to the nursery? Or no, we don't. So we will move on from there then to silent and spoken. Oh, excuse me. Now's the time to share our joys and concerns, which are affecting our lives. And if you have a joy or concern, Steve has the microphone there. Raise your hand. He'll bring you the microphone, say your name, and tell us briefly what you're thinking about, and I'll light a candle for you. And I would like to begin, as I always do on Poetry Sunday, by lighting a candle in memory of John Duane, who was always the person who was the lay leader for Poetry Sunday.
March just mentioned it has been gone 10 years.
10 years.
I'm Kathy Haynes, and I just have a couple. That Donna is ill today because she went to work on Friday with another worker that was ill, and she gave it to her. She wasn't very happy about that. Wasn't looking for that when she got to work. And she also had a very dangerous house issue with her gas dryer during the week. And so I'm just very pleased their house is still standing because it was that bad of a dangerous. And Tommy has 4 days of preschool, and that's a hip hip hooray for me.
Good morning, I'm Gretchen Marshall, and please light a candle of joy for a young friend of ours who is packing up and moving to California to start a brand new life.
Jackie Johnson. McCrae attended his last day of high school on Friday. He graduates, and he has enlisted in the Navy and will be shipping out in September. So he is doing great, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to put some announcements about his open house downstairs.
Joanne Bernstein, and I have both a joy and a sorrow at the same time. Today, I will be moving over to my older daughter's house at Lake Columbia, leaving my other daughter, who my son and I are not getting along. This is supposedly a temporary situation, but it might last anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. So I did post a note downstairs on the bulletin board if anybody wants my address or telephone number. Thank you.
Robin Wormser. Just a joy of caring and concern for the family of Jim Marks, who passed away this past week.
And if you could light a candle for my daughter, who is chronically, seriously ill, and also perhaps for my son and daughter-in-law, whose family just got back from another trip to Puerto Rico, trying to find relatives that disappeared during the hurricane.
Carol Hartsoff. I just wanted to tell everyone that an old member of the church, she has since, for years now, passed and lives in another, what is it, Grand Rapids? Grand Rapids, passed away Tuesday. Barbara Blossom Horning. She was 77. And probably not too many people here remember her, but she was very active in the church with the rest of the family.
I light this last candle for those joys and sorrows that we have that are left unspoken, so let us please share them in this loving community. Our words for silent and spoken meditation come from Zadie Smith, called Poems. Poems are of life and the fife and the drum, of joys and dreams and the bum and life on the run, babies who are born of sunshine and pain, of schools and of fools, life's longing to believe, of hopes and prayers, flowers and birds come into view, the passing of life, one stage to another, the love of sister and brother, of plans to build and the task to be done, the planting of seeds, of mothers and fathers and lovers be told, of children at play and plans for the day, of those who grow old their wisdom is told, the waves of the ocean seeking the shore, the lay of the land, man's tales will be told, of all that is new and all that is old, it is all on the page, the meaning of life. Blessed be, and amen. In our hymnal, there's a quote that says, "Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream." Brandock Lovely. So we will have the offering. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing hymn 149, Lift Every Voice.
Sing,
was written by the poet James Weldon Johnson and is considered the African American national anthem. John Hart, am I right about that? Thank you. Our reading today is from Shakespeare, Sonnet 130. He wrote a lot of sonnets, and at the time everybody was writing sonnets like, oh, I'm so in love with you, you're so beautiful, your eyes are like the stars, and your lips are like, I don't know, red something really good, and your hair's beautiful, and so on. And so he went on a little rant, which was unusual for him, but I like it. So he said, my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses I see in her cheeks. And in some perfumes there is more delight than the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. I'd like to introduce once again Debbie Davies.
Thank you, Dan. I don't know who I'm bringing this to, but if somebody's interested in water quality in Michigan, I'm just going to pass this. I'm going to pass this around because I just had time to look at it before I left today. I found it was really discouraging. But you guys sent me the challenge that I'm going to try to take up today. Am I coming through on this? Last time I was here, I don't remember who asked, but someone said, what is lyric poetry? And I thought, geez, I don't know. So I went home. I write poetry. I've taken a zillion poetry courses. I went home. I sort of associate it with pretty stuff, Went home, looked up a bunch of dictionary definitions, and I didn't find anything that sounded right to me. So before I read a couple of my poems, I found this book, Poetry is Survival by Gregory Orr. He died recently, but was a very influential poet. And he has this, he's got a description of lyric poetry that I loved. B, I was touched by the fact that he was propelled into poetry after when he was 10, he shot his brother fatally in a hunting accident, and after terrible depression through his teens, began to find his way into poetry classes as a way to heal. And he writes about lyric poetry as having developed in different cultures after people have lost control of their surroundings, their environment, after the Holocaust, when the Jews were taken into Egypt, and I can't give all the examples, but he says lyric poetry is to reclaim the subjective, the personal, and it may be in praise, in celebration, in grief, in trying to make change, but it's the personal voice speaking at a time when you don't have control of what he calls the over-civilization, which struck me as really meaningful. Now, let me see if I can, back to the notes. I like this because it rang true for me. I'm kind of picking through some of his other things. He said that he hates poetry that intimidates people, and the need to listen to and maybe write our own subjective poetry. It doesn't have to be great. When you're writing it, you're claiming who you are in spite of everything that is happening around you. And it can be quite, I love children's poetry. I mean, even the poem about sometimes, I love the jumping on the bed, but also sometimes I cry and I don't know why. I think I had my 4-year-old grandchild at my house a couple weeks ago doing that, and it was very frustrating, but it did look familiar. Anyway, he said, I love this quote, he said, "Lyric poetry is written down or composed in every culture on this planet at this moment. That is 1,000 cultures in 3,000 different languages." And he said he learned to see it less as a high crystal citadel than as a raw forge to work through his feelings and see where they took him. I don't normally read poetry theory, you know, when I go to a poetry reading, but this one just really nailed me. He had a few examples of poetry, personal poetry, that I thought I would just share because they're so different, and yet I bet they will ring some bells for you. This one was written 2,500 years ago. It was in a book of Chinese that was called Odes or Songs, and it was primarily written by women poets and was not paid much attention to. What a surprise at the time. But the woman writing says, "Blue, blue, your collar, sad, sad my heart. Though I do not go to you, why don't you send word? Blue, blue your beltstone, sad, sad my thoughts. Though I do not go to you, why don't you come?" This is a little trickier, trying to flip around through this book, but very different. D.H. Lawrence, I'm sure you've heard it, talking about how we look toward the future. What is the knocking? What is the knocking on the door in the night? Is it somebody who wants to do us harm? No. No, it's 3 strange angels. Admit them. Admit them. And rats, I am looking for something I can't find here, which is from the Philippines, because I guess I didn't mark it as closely as I wish I had. I always have all these different theories about how I'm going to get through the poems I love best. Oh, he also mentions, I know what I should say, maybe not referring to my notes, but that he begins to come toward poetry in a workshop he took by Stanley Kunitz, who writes about the suicide of his father. And he says, that was the first time that I realized that poetry could be lucid and could claim the past and the present. There we go. There's my note. I love this contemporary Polynesian lament. Ah, we grow old, oh beloved, we too. We too, indeed, together, oh beloved, when our bodies grew thin and old, like a flat fish resting on the bottom. Sorry, I just had to read that. I thought that was wonderful. And I thought it was, I also was touched by, these are such a few examples of what is in this book, but I never looked at these, this gave me a frame to see the range of personal poetry. It's always a question. Originally, poems were written for the state, for armies, for kings, for religions. And yet, when we write personal poetry, we often feel that it doesn't matter or that it's diminished. And this book gave me kind of a frame to see this huge variation of poetry fitting into the same picture. I just read this book, Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo. It was finally Zora Neale Hurston's manuscript got into print. They didn't like the dialect that she had produced it in. And boy, there is a lot of violence in it, not during his slave days, but when he is collected as a slave by another African tribe. But he says that when they are in the Barracoon, the slave barracks, they're all young men and women. They're about 19 years of age. The children are mostly taken back to the villages, and the older people are killed instantly. Yes, Black Panther fans, by a group of women warriors who come into the tents while the men circle the village. But he says this group of young men and women, when they see they are being broken up to go on different ships, they sing, "Our grief so heavy, look like we can stand it. I think maybe I die in my sleep when I dream of my mama." So, I think poetry has a way of breaking through stereotypes. This was maybe my favorite for me. Excuse me. Here's a poet I'm not familiar with, Dorian Lowe, L-A-U-X. And she says, when the first time she's in a poetry workshop, "I was in my late 20s, a single mother, working as a waitress in a small family restaurant. And I was told to write about what I know, and what I knew was my life, a life I was sure wasn't acceptable as subject matter for poetry. A life that included instances of domestic violence and sexual abuse. In Steve's workshop, I was given permission to write about that life. I was working class, I was a woman, I was a mother. Could this mundane, ordinary world be a subject for poetry?" So that's probably the end of my sermon on why we should all feel emboldened to write poems. And I don't think that they have to be, oh, thank you so much, Vic. I should have brought my own water. Sure, I will. I brought two of mine, actually. Two very short poems. This one's from my husband, Rick. Some of you will remember the poem that I wrote, noted for her meek demeanor when she drank the toilet cleaner. I'll admit I've never seen her so distraught before. Marge Twain's favorite poem. If she had asked me to cook dinner, wash a shirt, or a small sinner, I'd have done it. No beginner, I'm on the chore. She had trouble stating needs. Said it seemed like nagging. I'm not omniscient. Now she lies there gagging. What a way to take her life. Who can understand a wife? I'd have helped her find a knife if only she had asked me. Okay, some of you probably remember that, which Rick put on his bank office walls and terrified people with. This is my poem for Rick, who has been washing all the walls in our 150-year-old house this month. I'm trying to help a little, but he is actually a lot stronger at it. I set him at the task and stuck him there. Rick, This fall, pain took my breath, leaving you mucking out our home. Do you miss the Quicksilver girl you courted? I never thought I would need so much from you. But here's a lighter one, okay? I'm going to a friend's 100th birthday at Vista Grand Villa this afternoon, and this is my poem for Mary Cullen. Lady who loves pink roses, red tulips, and every child you ever taught, your house was my second home. Vivaldi in the living room, upstairs, early Bob Dylan, sewing patterns mingled with New Yorker magazines, white cakes, meringue frosting, brewed black coffee, peach pie, bacon and eggs and generosity. So I'm hoping y'all have some poems with you. Fast, funny, long, serious. I think I do feel more comfortable saying if you've written it and you have not written it to a head of state or an established single religion, it fits into that big group of lyric poetry. I may still be uncomfortable talking about lyric poetry. It still sounds a little Fall de Raleigh to me, but God damn it, it is poetry. Excuse the profanity.
I know Marge Duane has a poem, and Paul is going to bring her the microphone to read from her pew.
Yes, I am Marge Duane, and this is not my favorite poem, as you have just discovered, but it does speak to me. It's by Robinson Jeffers, who wrote in the first half of the 20th century, American poet. It's called The Answer. I don't know if it's lyric or not. Maybe you can tell me. Then what is the answer? Not to be deluded by dreams, to know that great civilizations have broken down into violence and their tyrants come many times before. When open violence appears, to avoid it with honor or choose the least ugly faction. These evils are essential. To keep one's own integrity, be merciful and uncorrupted, and not wish for evil, and not be duped by dreams of universal justice or happiness. These dreams will not be fulfilled. To know this, and know that however ugly the parts appear, the whole remains beautiful. A severed hand is an ugly thing, and man, dissevered from the earth and stars and his history, for contemplation or in fact, often appears atrociously ugly. Integrity is wholeness. The greatest beauty is organic wholeness, the wholeness of life and things, the divine beauty of the universe. Love that, not man apart from that, or else you will share man's pitiful confusions or drown in despair when his days darken.
Thank you.